This season of Decoded is brought to you by Morgan Walsh Consulting, supporting businesses and their leaders at moments of transformation or scale. For more information on services, head over to morganwalshconsulting.ie.
Literally, I turned up at a game and they were like, go. And it was Bangladesh men against West Indies men. Absolutely bonkers. That was there was a tri-series in Clontarf and I got a phone call saying, will you do it? It's tomorrow. And I started a mantra a while ago, which was just say yes to everything. Even if you're scared, especially if you're scared, just say yes.
I'm Laura Morgan Walsh, and you're listening to Decoded, the podcast where we translate our guests' career path. What were their CAO choices? What part of their career journey would they go back and change? What's the good, the bad, the perks, and the boring parts of their role? And how will their role be influenced by AI in the future? One of Ireland's most decorated female cricketers, Isabel Joyce, is my guest this week on Decoded. Without a definite plan of what was to come after her leaving cert, Isabel carved a career from an amateur sport. If you or someone you know would love to pursue a career in sport other than playing, in this episode we translate the moments that moved Isabel from Irish cricketer to international commentator. And now for my chat with Izzy. I hope you enjoy. Izzy, you're very welcome. Thanks a million for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, and I look forward to the chat and coming back and forth with you about everything cricket and also sport as well.
So tell me, to kick us off, can you take me behind the scenes a little bit on commentating? What's involved?
Yeah, so commentating is explaining more so than telling people what's happening on the screen. So everyone that's watching generally can see it. Obviously, there are people who are listening more so, but when it's TV commentary, which is what I do, you're trying to give that insight behind what's happening, why it's happening, how it's happening, what's likely to happen in the future, and drawing on all your experience as well from the past. So really, you're kind of having a chat with one other person. You've got defined roles within your commentary team. Okay. And based on that, that kind of colors what you say and when you say it.
So tell me a little bit more about the actual mechanics of the job itself. I mean, how does the prep start? And you just said there that you've defined roles on the commentary team. I'd love to know more about that.
So I've worked in the last few years with a lot of people who have no experience at all. So I'll contact them and say, I'm here to help you because I was that person who had no idea and walked into a commentary box. Literally, I turned up at a game and they were like, go. And it was Bangladesh men against West Indies men. So absolutely bonkers. So there was a tri-series in Clontarf and I got a phone call saying, will you do it? It's tomorrow. And I started a mantra a while ago, which was just say yes to everything.
Okay.
Even if you're scared, especially if you're scared, just say yes. Oh my gosh, that was so horrific that first day. I couldn't listen back to it really. Thankfully, my husband was listening, so he was able to give me some quick feedback that night, and we worked out a few things that I didn't know beforehand. But so that because of that, I have a few things that I make sure that everyone knows before they go in, which is you're at one of either the lead or the color commentator. So the lead, best way to describe it, says what's happening, and the color tells you why it's happening. So it's your kind of all sports commentator would be the lead. Not always. In cricket, we often have specific cricket leads, and then you've got your expert is the other way to explain the color. So your former players, your technical analysts, those kinds of people, they're the color. Okay. So I would usually be color on men's things in particular, and then in women's cricket I'm moving more into lead as well. So that's kind of, I'm trying to do both, because as a female, that's your kind of way into men's cricket more so is as a lead presenter type commentator.
Okay, very good. And so it sounds very exciting, very edge of your seat stuff. But if I was to go back to the very start, right? Going back to where Isabel Joyce was at 17, 18, looking at a CAO form, right? What did you fill out? What was the plan? Did you know what you didn't want to do?
I'll tell you a funny story. I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. Okay. I knew I wanted to play cricket, but that wasn't a career path at the time, as you'll know as well as I will. But and I was playing, international cricket at the time. So my mum sent me and my twin sister to a specialist, and we did suitability tests and IQ tests and all this kind of stuff. Took a couple of hours. Neither of us really knew what we wanted to do. Youngest of 9, all that kind of stuff. And Cecilia's came back very clearly, 90% law, and then there were lots of things, 87, there was things like that. My highest was 50. And what the man said, which I'll never forget, so the highest thing, because I'm mathematical music, like there's lots of different parts to my personality, but quite mathematically minded. My dad's an actuary, my sister's a mathematician, but he said the highest thing that you got there, and actually the highest thing was writer editor, sorry, first thing. So that was first, and I thought, yeah, that checks out. Next thing, and the next 10 things were different types of accountant. And it's not that accountancy, there's anything wrong with accountancy, but what he said next is the funny thing, which is he said, but you're not to do that because you get so bored, you'd probably end up being a criminal. And then what personality part of the test telling him, like, I just don't go into that.
She won't last. Isn't it funny how there's a perceived system, and that if you are one way of doing things, well, then you're definitely heading this path. And actually that worked out well for your sister, right? Yeah. But in terms of somebody who is multifaceted, somebody who cuts across a number of different subjects, is very good at sport, is determined at sport, also likes creative stuff, you're not on your own. I don't think, in terms of a lot of people that are just, well, there's not a lot I hate and there's not a lot I love. There's just a lot I can do. So where do I land? So what did you actually, after that very session of don't be a criminal, what did you end up putting down on your CAO for?
I did journalism. So I did do journalism, and then I put various types of different business degrees in there, which I still think I would have enjoyed, because I didn't have to go into accountancy. I could have been in business, and there are so many jobs within businesses that I'm seeing now that I would find interesting. And I do, because when I'm not commentating, I'm working in marketing and communications within that space in Cricket Ireland because of my expertise in cricket, but also the kind of written side of things. But you're so right, because for me, and actually a good few of my friends, more so in hockey than cricket, you could see that they had lots of different interests, and everyone kind of, it's brilliant being able to dip in and out of different things. So I liked having, I played a lot of hockey as well, and I loved having that other sport, because when cricket was doing my head in, I had this other game, and when hockey was doing my head in, I had cricket. And so I went in to study journalism.
Where was that?
That was in DIT, but it was on one of only 2 journalism courses. DCU was the other one. I think I didn't get DCU. And very quickly while I was in there, I enjoyed the degree, but I didn't enjoy the cutthroat nature of it.
Interesting.
Because what I found was I had to go away on a tour. So I went to people in the class and said, can I get notes from you when I get back? And a couple of people said, no, why would I give you my notes? Because then you might do better than me. And I thought, is that to do with the notes, or is that to do with you doing the work? I don't.
Wow.
And I thought,
but and actually, it is an industry that is renowned for that. But I don't think you've gone into a very shy and retiring industry either, with commentating in immense profession, in professional sport, whether that's the women's game or the men's game, that the majority of commentators are men. Thankfully, it's changing, and you're part of the changing face of that. But there's a little bit of irony there that you away from.
Oh, it's not lost on me at all, because actually, in some ways, it's worse, because it's not about what you say; it's about what's been said about you. A lot of the time, so people can say what they want in the background, and all you can do, though, which is what I took from the college experience into this, when this kind of came up for me again, where I'm very team oriented. I want to help, but I learned very quickly, you might tell someone something because you just find it interesting about a game or a player or whatever it is, and then you'll hear it on the microphone the next minute because someone's just taken what you've told them. So I decided I'll talk about stuff 100%, and I have to be willing for that to be said by someone else. You just have to make these decisions. But I was able to recognize it and come to terms with it much more quickly because I had been through it before.
Very good. So talk me through, it's a 3 or 4 year degree? How long?
4, yeah.
4, okay. And during that time you did Erasmus as well. Where did you do that?
I was in Munich for 7 months, I think it was. So right from the snow in January through to the warm weather in July. And yeah, I actually did learn a lot of German because I made best friends with an Italian girl who didn't speak English. We did it on purpose so everyone would speak German to us.
Very
Because everyone
good.
else's German is much better than ours. So yeah.
Absolutely. And what was the plan then when you came back?
Yeah, so I came back and we'd always, within my cricket team, we'd always decided we were going to go for a year away and traveling around the world. Where we were going to go, exactly what route, we weren't sure, but we knew we'd spend time in Australia. And it happened to coincide with the Ashes tour over there, which was, so tough.
What can you do?
And my brother was on the team, in the squad, not on the team, but in the squad. So we worked for the summer when we came back and went traveling, and then came back from there. And it was kind of, what am I going to do now? I had been coaching before I went away to make money to travel. And then when I came back, I just went back into coaching.
So, what's it like to have done a degree? You've been away, you have a language, you've done your year out, and you come home and you're now coaching. So what is the conversation like at home when they ask, what is the plan?
Yeah, well, so my parents weren't really like that, where they would say, what are you doing now about that? Because I guess at no point, aside from living in their house and obviously food being available, a lot later in life than when I was little and everyone was living at home. But I generally took care of my own expenses. You weren't given money for anything. So, I got a job when I was 16 working in a pizzeria. And from then on, you kind of support yourself for anything beyond what would be very stable. So there's no panic from my mum and dad. All that being said, I did move out with friends. And with coaching, while you don't get one coaching job that's 40-hour a week, you tend to fill in this and that. So I used to work in a senior school, 2 primary schools, and then work on the weekend coaching. And then I did a personal training course and became a Zumba instructor as well. So I did personal training on the side, worked in a studio, and this was all to fit around playing. So everything that I did was to facilitate playing.
Brilliant. And just to be clear, at that time, because it's different now, there was no professional pathway for women's cricket. So you were doing all this in order to be able to play cricket for Ireland at the tournaments, captain Ireland, do all this, but without any expenses for it.
Yeah, so at the start of coming, so I came back in 2008, kind of would have been when I would have, had to make sure that I could pay all my own rent and everything like that. But a lot of it was to make sure you could pay your bills when you were on tour, because cricket tours are so long. So we stopped having to pay to go on tour. So, that was a thing early in my career. You had to pay for your tour, but we didn't have to pay to go on tour, but you didn't get any expenses whatsoever, like no mileage even to go to training or anything like that. And so it was, I suppose, more kind of towards 2012, 2013 is when other countries were more professional and we weren't, and you really saw the difference because they were able to, commit a lot more time than we were. So yeah, it wasn't really a discussion with my parents about that. I should mention that I did have some mentors within journalism that gave me some ins that way. Jerry Siggins in particular. I did some work at Sunday Tribune, but more as a sub editor. So yeah, I worked in the Irish Mail on Sundays, Fridays, and Saturdays for the Sunday edition as a sub editor for quite a few years as well.
But it sounds exhausting, Izzy.
Yeah,
it sounds like a 7-day week hustle in order to keep going at something that is a passion and that is, I find it fascinating that you knew that there was no career in it, but you kind of went with the flow and just went, it's all going to be grand, we're going to figure it out.
I think there's 2 reasons why it worked out for me. One is that there's no driving thing that I really knew that I wanted to do. I remember being 11 and thinking I want to be a cricketer, and then realizing I only see men here. So then kind of that was the penny drop kind of moment. But with the career side of things supporting me playing, it was about what's my favorite thing that I want to be doing. And I always told myself, you're not going to play forever. This is going to come to an end. And that's when that's when you're going to have your moment of what the hell am I going to do? Kind of more than anything. And that did happen to me 100%. You finish playing. I probably played a little bit longer than I necessarily wanted to, because I wanted to get to a certain point. You want to achieve X, Y, and Z. So when I finished playing, that was when I was like, okay, what am I doing now? Because now you're that person who did do something. You're not like, when you're telling your story to people. And it's okay. I know I'm only a coach, which annoys me anyway. Coaches are very important. And when you're a male coach, that's fine. But as a female, that's not a valid identity, I suppose. But it was okay because I played international cricket. So now the opposite of international cricket, you're a coach.
So we'll fast forward to 2018 when you yourself, your sister, and two other Irish internationals, actually, Aaron Schiller's decided to call it a day. Great servants of Irish cricket. Did you have a plan leading into that, or was it when did the plan come of, do you know what? Here's exactly what I'm going to do. I know I want to be a commentator.
So the couple of years before I retired, I was in Australia as well in the off season playing professionally. So that's important to know for a few reasons, because I managed to achieve that goal that I'd had as an 11-year-old and play for Tasmania and the Hobart Hurricanes. Not for huge money, it has to be said. Watching the 100 auction yesterday and you're thinking, wow, they're making great money. Well done for them. But the other thing to note is that I generally was always captain of teams and I was often coach. So I was in some ways in training for commentating my whole life, because a teacher and a coach, you have to stand up in front of some hostile crowds of 12-year-old girls who don't want to play or whatever it is. You got to find a way to either get their attention, make it fun, whatever you feel like you need to do. And I'm by no means saying I was always successful in any way at that, but in some ways then talking in front of other people, not as daunting. So by the time I got to 2018, I kind of knew in the winter preceding this was going to be it, because I had been playing for Tasmania and Hobart, and I would wake up and kind of dread it. I was happy to train and kind of dreaded playing. And then after the game, I'd be relieved if I'd done okay, as opposed to, so that's real.
That's when you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't want to just give it up then. You kind of, you have your story that you feel like you can tell. So anyway, my last game was an absolutely horrific game. We did horribly. I did horribly. And I was thinking, why did I do that? I shouldn't have even played. But anyway, it was great to walk off the field with the other three girls and do the interview afterwards and everything. And then then I started working for Clontarf Cricket Club. I got a call. They recruited me over, and then I also got recruited by Trinity men's team to be their player coach. So that kind of, to me, I was like, that's pretty cool. First female coach of two first teams, the men's in Clontarf, and then also, so that kind of became my identity to a degree for a few years while I started commentating.
Okay.
Because commentating, unless you're like a former World Cup winning captain, it's a graft for a long time. It's a real graft. And my years grafting to play probably prepared me for that, because you're not making much money.
Take me to the phone call that comes to say, can you be in Clontarf tomorrow? The West Indies are playing against Bangladesh. We'd like you to commentate.
At the time when there were international men's series, not women's series, because we didn't stream them then, I don't really know how it worked, but I think that it was, you need a couple of voices from Ireland and then you would fly in. So I think Cricket Ireland had an agreement with a production company. They are not an Irish production company. So they would source people, then you deal directly with them. But they would ask for Irish names maybe if they couldn't source someone. So our media manager, pretty new to the job at the time, obviously for some reason thought of me, I think because I had been interviewed a few times at that 2018 World Cup. And there was one interview where apparently I was extremely candid and everyone thought it was hilarious that I was just like, we were really bad, and I just like said it like it was, which is kind of my style. But so on the back of that, he rang me and said, they're looking for someone to do these games. Are you interested? And I just thought, heck, I'll give it a go. And so I happened to be in Clontarf, which is where I had also started my new coaching job. So the next week, someone that I was coaching, a 17-year-old kid, said, who are you? Why are you here? Because I was coaching these boys. And I said, who am I? I said, well, and I was about to say, well, I just retired from international cricket, which I played for 20 years. And he said, oh, didn't I see you? Aren't you that commentator? Didn't you commentate the other day on the men's cricket? And I said, yeah, okay, let's go with that.
I am now a commentator.
That's now me.
Yeah, that's now me. If we fast forward from that first opportunity that you got, the mindset to say, I'm just going to say yes, no matter how scary. And in fact, if it is scary, like you said, I'm even more so, I'm going to say yes to the most recent under 19. Like when I heard you, when I heard your voice on the matches, because I had them playing in the kitchen while I was floating around, I was like, oh my God, this is a moment. Like this is a real moment of, it's a global event. It's any women who are commentating, I believe, on men's games. It's a step up. It's a real recognition of your talent and skill in the game.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, as I said, I started on men's cricket, and in a lot of ways, men's cricket is easier to commentate on. Part of that is because the commentators are more experienced. The production is kind of higher quality, so you get more camera angles, more replays. As you've probably guessed by now, I'm quite tactical and technical, so you can ask for certain angles or certain, when they kind of show people side by side their actions or whatever it is, you can ask for that kind of stuff. So on the women's game, you don't have much support most of the time in the production. So anyway, in the men's game, you do have a lot of egos that have been earned, and it's quite competitive. So early on, when I commentated in Ireland, I had a mentor called Gavin, and he was a director, and he's mentored lots of people in the commentary game. He does a lot of world events. He generally does the World Cup final, that kind of stuff. So he's very experienced. And he said to me, I think you're good, but you need to work on your, I think it was my tone of voice. So as an Irish person from Bray, we're very monotone. So I have to really work on how I was delivering my sentences.
Isn't it funny how that's the technical bit of, of the actual job? People are in jobs, they get feedback on their presentation skills, on how they talk in meetings. You're getting feedback on.
See, that was my other people, they have natural, say if you got someone from Kerry and they're talking, that's the easy part for them. Maybe now they need to work on the technical side. Everyone has their things. But what surprised Gavin was, I said, no, I agree, totally agree. I really need to work on that. And he went, oh, okay, well, she's obviously open to feedback. So I said, I'd appreciate whatever you have to tell me. And now I find that painful. Like hearing that to your face is hard. But I'm used to feedback because of my playing career. So I just took it on the chin, and he liked that. So he did a bit of mentoring and put me forward for a couple of things. So that's important to have. What's it called when it's people who talk about you when you're not in the room?
Yeah, it's advocacy. It's somebody who's going to advocate for you when you're not in the room.
Almost like a sponsor kind of thing. So
it is. It's true mentorship. As I look back on my career, I don't think I invested enough in mentors. I tried to do it all myself, and surely the work will speak for itself. No, that's not the way the world works, Laura. You need people who are going to speak about you in a room that you're not in, and that are going to be very clear about, here's what she's working on, and here's what she's quite good at, and here's what she can bring to the table. If you were looking back on your career to date and the windy path that you've taken, what's the one thing you would do differently?
There were a few times that I didn't take opportunities or couldn't take opportunities because of a job that I was in. I should have just taken holidays, or, I could have found a way. And instead I did a little bit of poor me, and it definitely held me back for a little while. I thought that there's nothing I can do about it, because I had my salaried job, which wasn't the Clontarf job or anything I've mentioned, but I had a salaried job because I was trying to buy a house. I took that job to have the bank statements and all that kind of stuff, because all the rest of the time I worked by hour, and I always did up until that point. That was my first time in 2019 is the first time that I had a job where I got a paycheck for the month.
And this is where life kicks in. It's
exactly. And I mean, bear in mind, I'm in my mid-30s at this point. So, I was late to that. And I don't regret that, because I learned you have to earn if you're going to pay at the end of the month. That was how I lived for a long time. And it allowed me a lot of, if I wanted to go do something, I would either say, okay, either give me the time off or I quit. That's because I knew I'd always find other things that I could do within coaching. So people generally just let you get cover, and they don't want to lose you. So you can't get people to cover your hours. But anyway, I did by that point then I wasn't prepared for how to get time off to do what I really wanted to do, which was the commentary. So I think if I could go back, I would have done that differently.
These are the choices you make, and this is how it works out. If anyone's listening to this and the professional path in some field of sport, playing it, and it's not working out, but they still want to stay in sport, they know they're passionate about it. What do you consider the perks of a commentary job? What's the nice bits?
The nice bits are, I first of all just love talking about cricket. So if that's something that you like, if you're into hurling or whatever it might be, and you talk about the game afterwards, that was very clear to me from an early age. I was one of the few girls I knew who wanted to talk about the game after you played it. Everyone else was like, will you stop going on about that ball in the 5th over or whatever it was? So I could never find anyone to chat cricket with me apart from Cecilia. So that was my early training, Cecilia being my twin sister. But there's a great camaraderie working within cricket, because generally people have played in team sports and you'd like to work together. I love working in a team, whatever the aspect. But in commentary, you get to meet famous people sometimes. When you get to the kind of top level, you get to work with people that were your heroes. A couple of years ago, I got to commentate with Sean Pollock, who was always my favorite cricketer growing up. So, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hope he's really nice, because I'll be devastated if he's not. And he is. So that was good.
That's a nice return. Yeah.
And then, it's just kind of a cool job, isn't it? Like, you feel, there were a few times I was commentating on, it took a lot of years for me to feel like I was cool in any way at any time doing it. But my kids were at a game and we had our commentary tent, and then I was standing beside Carlos Brathwaite and Dwayne DeLocca, and Dwayne does the opening ceremony for the Olympics, and Carlos Brathwaite, he won the World Cup, and I was there. And rather than thinking, what am I doing here, I just thought, isn't this great? I don't really attest to I don't even want to name what it's called when you feel like you're not good enough. The main things that I really take from coaching, more so than playing, which is you get your feedback from the outcome. So if you keep on bowling wides in cricket, say, or let's make it more relatable, if you see someone missing a shot on goal, you hooked it to the right, as I'm pointing now, and that happens because of X. In cricket, if as a left armer I bowl a wide down leg, it's because my front arm wasn't working. So I get the feedback from what happened, I can change it and then move forward. So that's one of the main things that I would teach. And then the next thing is yet. So someone who says, I can't play that shot, and I would say, yes, just add yet on, because you do those two things, take the feedback from the outcome, you add yet on when you can't do something, and all of a sudden it's all just a step towards where you're going to go and what you want to do. Because there are loads of times I've commentated and thought, gosh, I was terrible there. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? That was embarrassing. I stumbled over that. And it's like, I'm not where I want to be yet.
Yes. And you know what? The world keeps turning. It moves on, because, what I love about cricket is that it takes one ball to change a game.
Yeah.
And that's all. So you're waiting on the next ball. So in life, you're waiting on the next phone call. You're waiting on the next job interview. Like, it is just one chance. That's all you need. It's the next conversation that you have. There's always that next, if you have that kind of head up, looking forward approach to things. But every job also has the good, the bad, and the boring. What is the good, the bad, and the boring element of commentating?
So the first one I think I alluded to earlier, which is it can be a grind for a long time. I've done a lot of ICC, which is International Cricket Council tournaments at pathways. So before you get to World Cups, you've got your qualification levels, and that goes right down to, teams where sometimes you feel like your own club team would beat someone that's playing in an international, because you got to start. So you've got teams like that, and you're playing in places that you never thought you'd get to. And when you're doing ICC tournaments, certainly the ones I've done, you have to book your own flights, get your own accommodation, get from A to B, and then they'll reimburse you, but you have to do all that stuff. And then it's 2 games a day, every single day, and then you fly home. So it's a brilliant way to learn. But within that, you do a toss, then do a preamble to the game, do the whole game, then do a post-match interview with the captains and the player of the match. And then there might not be any time, maybe half an hour before you've got your next game toss, the whole thing again. So you're often there the whole day, and then now you've got to make your notes for the next day. And sometimes I did one tournament that had 10 teams that I'd never seen before, 10 men's team, and it was like Luxembourg and Austria and like all, and you're trying to get information on them. It's very hard to get any information beforehand. So then you're kind of going around going, he's wearing like pink socks or that kind of stuff to try and know who's who. So that's, and then you're not getting paid very much for that also.
You're honing your craft.
Correct.
You're building your experience. When you can do it in the trenches like that, I suppose sitting then in the, you're not sitting in a commentary tent anymore. You're sitting in a commentary box and you've all the production available to you. It must seem, Jesus, grand. It's like a half day compared to what I had to do.
No, the interesting thing about it is that when you're doing those those productions in tents, there's I got another guy, a director, and then maybe a sound guy, but it's very low key. And often you have those kind of headsets with a mic. Then you move up productions and everyone has their own earpieces, and you've got talk back. I'm sure everyone has heard the phrase talk back. Means there's someone talking in your ear while you're talking.
Oh, wow.
You can think about trying to talk while someone's giving you instruction. It's really hard.
Okay, so the level of difficulty doesn't necessarily go down. It's just different.
It's just different difficulty, yeah. And then there's like a thing called a lazy, but basically they don't tell you this when you go in the box because they don't know that you don't know. Okay, so you're supposed to press a button to talk to the director, but who are you going to ask what that is?
Oh, wow.
So it took me a while to actually find out what all those buttons were. I just didn't press anything.
Is there a course you can do to become a commentator?
There is now. There is now.
Okay, and that's one in Ireland, is it?
It's literally just kicking off now. So that guy I mentioned earlier, Dwayne DeLocca, he's South African. He's moved to Ireland recently, and Sport Ireland and MWX Media are combining together to offer it to kind of smaller organizations to try and get people to go through, and you can do different levels of commentary. So I would definitely look that up if it's something you're interested in. I've heard of people wanting to do it just for their own knowledge.
Okay.
He does public speaking, and he works with players as well, so that when they're interviewed, they know how to speak.
Yeah.
So that's something really interesting. And I went to Dwayne's talk when they were launching it, and already you're kind of thinking, because he just came, he literally landed from the Winter Olympics the day before, and then came and did this thing where they launched this commentary thing. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. But it's also brilliant that it's moved on, that the grind that you're talking about. There is a course that will explain to you what the wires do, what the buttons are, so that somebody who's interested in even just dipping their toe in it to see, is this something I'd like doing? Can get that under their belt. And I suppose my final question to everyone is around this topic of AI. So there's a lot of scaremongering around AI, what it's going to do to the world, to people's jobs. And I get that there is a reluctance or a hesitation among people when they're looking at certain CAO choices, or maybe they're in a job and they're worried about moving job in case AI is going to take that job. What role does AI play in the role of commentary, and how do you see it impacting into the future?
So I use AI a bit, more so when I'm in marketing communications for some ideas and things like that, because it can just compile, rather than me looking up lots and lots of different organizations, it'll spit out some ideas. Oftentimes I hate them, so it's, I just check. But for commentary, I'm very reticent to use it in some ways because you don't know where it's pulling its information from, and it's very often wrong. I don't know if that's going to change. A lot of commentary, and I didn't mention it earlier, but I should have, but a huge amount of it is your research. Because now I'd have a lot of knowledge about certain teams and certain players, especially the Irish team. A lot of the time I will have coached them from a young age and I know everything about them. So that's easy. You can pull on that. It's like talking about your friends if you're comfortable doing that. But for most of them, you don't know how many caps they have. You don't, and if you weren't a professional player or a high level player, you're going to be a lead commentator, which means need to know everything about those people. So you go, Laura Morgan from Russian Dublin, who studied in whatever college, has such and such number of caps. That you can think about how, especially football players, they talk about their, or in basketball, what number of assists, or those things are very specific to different sports. And if you want to commentate across sports, you have to be good at researching those kinds of things. It's not my favorite thing. Anyway, the research is really important. And if you get that wrong, you look very inept. And I've seen people get those kinds of things wrong. And I know my gut reaction is they don't know what they're talking about. I'm not going to listen to anything that they say because they got that fat factor, that stat wrong. Yeah. The recent World Cup, I don't know if you saw those graphics they had in the bottom left corner where they talked about the impact, or it was really weird. Nearly every single one I saw of it, I thought, I don't know what metrics you're using, but that's just completely wrong based on just having watched cricket. That's all. So I think they've gone too far into AI there. I think that's been AI generated, and AI doesn't know what it's talking about when it comes to the nuances of different parts of the game in cricket. So I think you have to be very careful. I do think that you can use it for starting off things. So I'm at the moment working on some videos we're doing about clubs around Ireland. And, you can feed some information in and say, what kind of questionnaire. And it just started it. It did 10 questions. And then from there, I can edit it. And being a sub-editor, that really works for me. Start it off and I will completely change it, but I've got a framework. So that's what I use it for. Or I was doing a pitch report in Bangladesh for a men's test match. And that sounds really weird if you don't know cricket, but that's a big deal in cricket, is what's the actual playing surface going to look like? What has it done in the past? What does it mean when it looks like X, Y, and Z? And you have to basically say, it looks like this, it does this, here's some distance, like all sorts of stuff. And I did not feel confident doing it at all. But as you know, I always say yes. So they're, are you confident? Are you comfortable doing that tomorrow? And I was like, of course. I was like pacing the room the night before, and I thought, okay, let's get some ChatGPT into this. So ChatGPT phrased it nicely for me and came up with some stuff for me to say. So
I love the way you said it gives you a great start. There's nothing scarier than a blank piece of paper or a blank whiteboard. Interesting, when I was preparing the intro for this, your caps were wrong. And I there was something where I just went, I'm going to actually double check with her, because the last thing I want to do now is get the number of caps she's had for, and she's earned every single one of these.
Yeah. I don't care about my own stats, but I do have 150th cap up there, so I knew it was more than 150. Then I had to look back.
Oh well, I think everyone should care about everything they've achieved, and it's funny. It doesn't mean a lot at the time. It's only when you look back at it.
It validates you in the eyes of other people, so it's useful for me in that sense. I think I mentioned to you, but not on this, that I put myself forward for that, and other people were like, really? Are you putting yourself forward for a men's test series? And I thought, hardly anyone from Ireland has played test cricket, but I have. And actually, I have the second best figures of all time. So I thought, I'm just going to put that forward. So thank goodness I did play that test, and thank goodness I have those figures. But for a long time, until the men played a test match, nobody ever even thought about the fact that we played a test match. But once they started playing it, now it's become kind of valid. So yeah, I mean, when I say I don't care about stats, at the end of a game, I'm like, how do I feel about how I did? Yeah. And for me, because I was captain, sometimes it was, did I enable my team to play well? That was actually more important to me, but that's just my personality and how I don't need to be the star. But if I feel like I contributed in that way, then I was happy. But
we're going to leave it there. Izzy, thank you so much. It's been really insightful. Listening to you talk about your journey has reinforced the idea of how important it is to keep women and girls in sport for as long as they can. It's okay not to have a plan, if you're willing to say yes and you're willing to take a chance and, pace the floor the night before and figure stuff out, then it works out, and you get to do something that you absolutely love. And I think if you're doing something you love, you become good at it. Because you're curious about being better. And I really enjoyed our chat. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
I've really enjoyed it, and I've learned a lot as well about what I think. So thanks a million. And thanks as well for doing this. For an 18-year-old me, I would have probably taken some solace from our chat. So hopefully it does that for some others out there.
Yeah. Thanks a million for being on Decoded.